All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Amanda. We're going to go over the October 2024 recap today. I'm kicking us off with USAS. I'm going to hit inventory while I'm going, and then we'll move on to USPS, Employee Service Center, and kind of talk through everything for October. We're a little bit later than normal because we pushed up our year-end meetings a couple weeks. We're hopping back and still doing the recap for last month now. All right. All right, so for USAS, we had two releases. They were both regular releases, 2024.19 and point 20. A couple things that we did for bug fixes. So the first one I have is we disabled the post button on pending transactions after it's clicked to prevent duplicate postings. What was happening? This was mostly in the case of like if it was a bigger posting that maybe took a while to process, so it would spin for a minute. We didn't see it happen very often, but every once in a while, if someone was in there and they clicked to post it and then they clicked again right away, it would duplicate. And so obviously you don't want that to happen. Now what'll happen is like once they go and click, let me post this, it'll prevent that accidental double click of duplicate processing. So so that was updated. We also corrected the account change process to move next year proposed amounts for budget and revenue. So this would happen at a very specific time of year, but perhaps when they do process account changes, if they've already done their budgeting and they've pushed the scenario to the proposed amounts, so they have proposed amounts sitting there ready for their next budget, those will get updated when those accounts are changed, as well. And then we also had a really specific patch to account change data. This was just for, I think, a couple districts that we had grouped together, and the bug was already fixed on a prior release. Um, so we had that for the bug fixes. For improvements, we have a couple things here. The main thing I'm going to show you today is we updated the account change page to include the initial setup for fund change. So the team is working on fund change. We've been working with AOS as well to make sure that the fund change that we're adding suffices for some of the things that they have planned in the future. But it is not available yet. So we've started putting the pieces in place of like where it's going to go. So I can show you that. But if anyone tries to use it right now, they'll get an error because it's not actually fully in the software yet. The actual process of changing a fund and what would happen in the background is not available just yet. So let me show you where we're looking here. And yeah, if they try one, it does give them a message saying that it's not yet available. Account change. So it's going to be in here with the other account change. So basically we figured, we already have this utility for the account change. Let's keep everything organized and together, whether they'd be changing a fund or whether they'd be changing the account. Right off the bat, you can see on this grid, there's a couple things that are a little bit different here. And mainly this type that you're seeing, we see expenditure, we see revenue account, and that's going to become important. There's also a spot for messages. I believe this was in here where if there's like one that failed, it would have a more detailed message as to why. But what we're looking at is create. So when you come in here and select account type, in this drop down, there is a cash account type. And so this is basically the part that was added in the release. This is all the visual stuff that's going to be the setup for when that can actually complete. So this is what they added is the starting setup for this. So, they pick the fiscal year that the change is going to start in, similar to like a normal account change, the from account, and then the fund and special cost center that they are changing that fund to. So that's the basics of what it looks like. And let's see, let's just close out of this. And then once they actually do those fund changes, hang on just a second. Once they actually are able to process those in the future, then they would show in the grid and you could look at the cash type, the cash account type changes on this grid. So we get a little preview to like what that's going to look like when it's there. All right. Okay, so I mentioned these things as well. For USAS, a couple more things were internal. They're still creating the rest controllers we've kind of talked about over time on some of these releases. It's not something that you'll see a change in the actual UI now, but they're building those in the background to improve connections to the software. So they did this for the proposed amounts, the budget scenarios, and then also some refactoring um, related to the file store integration. So that's USAS. Okay. Let me scroll down here. I'll scroll down. Let's hit inventory real quick. For inventory, we had 4 different releases in October, 2 regular releases, and a hotfix. Um, so bug fixes, there's quite a list of bug fixes here. So the first thing, gap buttons were removed from the configuration edit page. It can still be accessed from viewing the configuration page. So basically, this is just a thing of that gap button. It's at the top there. Actually, here, let me see. I think I have a picture in them in the wiki. Let me grab a picture real quick. So this is going to be it's the core configuration page. Because I know there's the one in system too. So when you're in here, see at the top, you have that disable gap flag. So basically this is still here. So whether they're like already enabled or disabled, this would still show when you go to the configuration page. But when you edit the page and you're doing other things, it doesn't actually make sense to have that button also there. So what this update did was it made it viewable when you're in view mode. Once you edit, it just takes it away so that so that you're not editing other things and then also try and click that flag. Click to change something there, which I mean, overall, they're like, that's not something that you're doing every day either. But yeah, so they updated that. When splitting an item, the numbering for newly created items has been corrected. So we saw some cases where when splitting an item, it had to do with like the leading zeros. So basically, if your item number started with a leading zero, when it splits, so say you split to 5 new items, it's going to have 5 new item numbers in a series. Well, those new item numbers were not accounting for leading zeros. So this fixed that so that they'll be correct. Acquisitions have been improved to prevent entering invalid fund dimensions. So basically, before it hadn't been checking if there were less than 3 digits in the fund. So like, you type in the account number. That wasn't actually being like validated. That was just sort of like okay, you can enter it in there as the reference for what the account code was. However, some of our reports, specifically fixed asset by source, do look at that fund code. So if it was like maybe miskeyed, typed in wrong, it was causing an issue. So now the field itself, like when you're entering the acquisition, will prevent that. It'll double check basically and make sure that that's valid information. All right. So the next one is the fiscal year create button has been secured. Okay, so basically this is when you're on that core menu and you go to the fiscal year grid, in order to create a new fiscal year, you need to have the inventory group manager permission or higher. So you're just locking down that permission to create fiscal years a bit. And so it's like not just a standard user can make a new fiscal year to roll over. So All right, and then this next one, and these are all kind of like odd bugs, but the disposition, and actually I usually try and update this. UI is like, so that's your user interface. So like so the page you're seeing. So disposition page has been corrected so that values entered into the field will not be removed once an item is selected from the drop down. So when you're entering a disposition, you're going to link it to an existing tag. If anything had been typed in previously and then the tag was picked, it was clearing that out, which obviously that's inconvenient. So that was fixed. These are the fields: amount received, authorized by, disposition date, code, and error adjustment will no longer be cleared if something's selected from the drop down. So a quality of life one there for sure. We improved the brief asset listing report. So we corrected this to include the original cost values if they're greater than or equal to the amount specified. When you run that report, there's an option to enter in an original cost. And before, what it was doing is it was just accepting, like if you put in $1,000, it was showing you just the items that were $1,000. Now it'll do 1,000 or great or more, which generally may be what you're looking for with that field, because you might want to see everything that meets the capitalization threshold, for example. There was also an update to subtotal by location code when the location code is selected, so that was fixed too. And just to note, that brief asset listing report, so that one is helpful. I know Michelle was mentioning this on our recent training for the inventory balancing, but that one is really helpful for balancing with the fixed asset gap reports. So like the schedule of change in fixed assets, this can give you more detail on it. So while you can pick to run just for like the capitalized ones, it may help in some situations to have this original cost where, again, you can set that to the capitalization threshold and maybe see items that are on there even if they're not capitalized and figure out why. But that's a really good detail report to help specifically with looking at fixed asset original cost amounts. All right. And then the last one for bug fixes here is amount fields were updated to ignore special characters. So previously the user would receive an error if they put in like a $sign or a comma as part of the amount being entered. So I'm sure you can imagine that there are situations maybe where they're copying amounts from like a sheet, to type in or paste in rather, and amount figures certainly may have a $sign or a comma in them, depending on how many digits. And so now, instead of getting an error and having to take them out, the field will actually just ignore them and just accept. It'll just look at the numbers so that they don't have to worry about an error in that situation. Okay. So those are our bugs. For improvements. So we have this improvement specifically I want to talk about is the beginning balance field has been added to the item grid and the item export. So, inventory, I've had conversations with a few of you lately. We had some changes to how the depreciation calculates, that we're running into some specific situations where if acquisitions do not equal the original cost, then some items are being flagged because the depreciation is calculating differently. And one way that we found that's easy, that makes those easier to spot, is comparing the beginning balance to the original cost. So we've been discussing this with the ITCs that that have put in tickets. So we have ongoing conversations. But just so you all know, I have been talking about this with the developers as well, and we're trying to do what we can to make things easier where we can. So we're still having ongoing discussions about it, for anything we can continue to do. But this was a big thing. We had an ITC request this, so thank you for your request. That, with finding the beginning balance field, it didn't used to be on the item grid. And so they said, hey, it would be, really, it would make this situation specifically helpful if we could get that added so we could compare. So we were able to do that. So we were able to escalate that issue and get it added on here. So the beginning balance, it's in the dropdown. It's all the way at the very bottom of the option for the grid. And you can add it there now. Now the beginning balance field. So the beginning balance field on the item, if it's capitalized at the beginning of the year, is the original cost. So if we see here, these are like my active items, which I don't think I filtered to capitalize for my screenshot, but you see that these are mostly the same. Now, there are other situations other than like so if you're somebody that is running into like depreciation questions and you're looking into this, there are other situations where the beginning balance might not be the original cost. If it wasn't capitalized before this year, like say an item just became capitalized this year, this might not match. So it's not the only situation where it happens, but it helps. So anyways, this is helpful if you need to use it. Also, if you were to take this and then on the grid, click to export to CSV or export to Excel, that the column is on there now too. So you could do a formula if you had a bunch of them you were looking at and figure out the difference and see if any that are not the same to look into. So, and then in addition to that, the REST version endpoint has been added, includes organization name and ID. So again, with the REST versions, that's something kind of in the background for connections. So that one's not as exciting for me to talk about anyway. And then we did have one patch to remove invalid dispositions with null dates for a specific district, so a specific situation. So yeah. So that's what I got for you. Do we have any questions about inventory or USAS before I pass it over? Okay. All right. All yours, Andrea.
Thank you, Amanda.
No problem.
Great. Let me share my screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, good morning. Happy Friday. I will be going over the October payroll releases. This in October, we had one hot fix in October 1st, and then we had two regular releases, October 13th and the 25th of October. So the first one, we'll go through the bug fixes first. This one was just for a district specific. It was they got an uninspected area when they were trying to log into their payroll. And what it was, they were creating a report definition and it threw a bug and it did not allow them to log into their system. So the developers had to actually go in and fix that report definition so they could continue on getting into their payroll. The next one was payroll posting. This one was for a district also. They found when they got to the search per pay report that it was throwing an error and they couldn't figure out why. And here to come to find out that this district ran the payroll, initialized it, then added a new employee, but forgot to add the social security number. So when they posted the payroll, it didn't get caught because Current didn't have that catch there at that time. So now if this ever happens again for a district that they add the new employee after they initialize payroll and then add them in, Current will catch that and they will receive a error and they will not be able to process through and post the payroll anymore. And they'll get employee social security number as null. The next one is they updated the compensation retro field, next pay. Before you could only include a positive number there for retro next pay. So now that has been updated. So now they can have a negative amount in the retro amount, but they got to ensure that that employee has enough gross from the pay amounts that they're getting paid to cover that negative retro amount, or it will throw error on the payroll report so they can catch it. It would be a warning. It won't stop it. So it could be missed if they don't look at their error report. Insufficient remaining gross to add the negative retro amount. And it'll tell you the employee and the compensation code, and then that it was not created. So again, it will not stop the payroll from processing and posting. So they have to make sure they look at that warning if it is on the payroll error report. The next one I'm going to skip because that one is a bug fix that was created after we had a release for the new feature down here. So I will come back to that one. The next one in the improvements is for the convert personal pay report. It was selecting archived employees in that, and districts did not want that, should not be including archive employees when they're doing this convert personal leave to pay. So now when they run this, they should not have any archive employees in there. The next one is the employee onboarding. The timesheet for ESS on the position. They need that timesheet required. That was added on under core in position, but it never got added to the employee onboarding portion. So that was caught. So they improved that. So now when you go to create an employee on employee onboarding, they will see the timesheet required. So if you're using ESS, this is required, and this employee is a timesheet. Okay. The next one was the W-2 archive individual forms. They just updated, so now you're going to see the calendar year in any of the error messages, or when they're in the job scheduler, they'll also see the year now. Before it was not including the year. So they wanted that. But again, they'll have to remember if they're recreating those archive individual forms, the W-2, that they will want to make sure that they have to delete it out of job scheduler first if they're trying to recreate it, and also remove it from the W-2 archive. So again, they have to make sure when they go to file archive, if they have to recreate it, that it's not sitting here. So two places they would have to delete it, from here first if they're recreating, and again when they're in job scheduler. So you also will see the year here. So that has been updated in our documentation. The other update for W-2 time is for West Virginia. So if you have districts that have employees from West Virginia, they did not want anything in RE record position 27. They wanted that blank, and it was throwing an error. So that has been updated. So now when they create their submission file, that on the RE record line position 27 should be blank. And then the next one was a patch that was for specific district again. When they were creating a new employee, they used the same SSN number, and it overwrote the employee's information. So our developers had to go in and do a patch to create that. So it removed that new employee from the old employee and had that information back. So I believe they are working on that, so that doesn't happen again. So hopefully that will be a fix in the future. Okay, on to our new features. The new one is our EMIS data extract reports. So what this is just under reports, in EMIS reports, you'll see two lines or two report definitions that you can select. Again, the first one was what it was the old way, that just generated the employee and position, and then it would show the errors on there that you, what employee was throwing errors. And again, I wanted to remind you that we do have our debugging EMIS errors under our SSD training. If you are unaware of that, in our ITC support resource materials, the debugging EMIS reports. So you at the ITC can use this to debug those reports that they run here that show the errors. And we have the instructions here for you. It just wanted to just bring that back up again. I'm sure most of you are aware of it, but just in case that is out there for your use. And it tells it detailed instructions on how to debug those reports. So back to the new feature. So once you want to create the report in CSV or Excel, you have that option now. And what this report will show, everything that gets submitted or everything that is EMIS reportable, those employees that have those fields. And you can run this report to make sure everything is processed or entered correctly and not missed. So again, you have the option to create or default the most recent save or recall. You can change your report title to to a different name if the district wants to save that. And again, you have two report formats. One is CSV and one is Excel data. And I'll run through both of these. I'll do the CSV first, and then I'll do the Excel data. And then you have the option to sort by either by employee number or employee name. You also have the option to include only records that are reportable to EMIS. If you want to report everybody, then you can uncheck that. And also you have the availability to include archived records. If you want to include them, then you have to check that. If you want to leave those employees out, then leave that unchecked. The next one is the EMIS fiscal year. So you want to make sure you're in the correct fiscal year that you're running the reports for. Again, you have the option to include compensations with a start date that's on or after the date that you selected or entered here. And you also have the option to include compensations of those employees that was last paid date on or after this date that you select. And then you have another option for the appointment type. So you can include certified or classified. Or if you want to check a certain employee that maybe have a question or district has a question on, they can actually select that employee by the drop down or enter the employee's name and add. They can also select by pay groups if they're checking pay groups that are reported to EMIS. They want to check those employees in those certain pay groups. They have that option by selecting by arrow or double clicking. And again, they have the option to select position codes. So if they want to run the report by employees that are in these position codes, they have that option too. So I'm going to go ahead and just run the report. And then here we have what your report looks like. So it brings in all that data that you reportable to EMIS employees that I have on here that they're going to need for the SIF data collector. So they can review these and make sure that all the data is entered in correctly before they send this report. So it's just a helpful breakdown of all the fields and shows everything. So then I want to run it in Excel data, which is not as pretty, but there is a way to fix it. Get myself out of the way here. And here you go. So this is what the report looks like when you run it in Excel data, but you can fix it. And if your districts like to use Excel when they run reports, they have that option. If they select here in the left-hand corner and then go to format, an auto fit row height, and also auto fit column width. And then that fixed the reports for them. And then now they can use it in the Excel if they choose to use that. And again, we do have this in our documentation in our under the reports, EMIS, EMS data, extract report. So we do have our documentation that shows how do you fix this EMIS data extract in Excel. So we do have our step-by-step process of how you can do that and get it to a readable format. Okay. So once we released that, we did release a bug they found on after the release, and that's why I'm coming back to this one. It was found that when they ran the report, it was not using the %1 was not using the right position field. It was using the funding source code 2 value on the position for the employee, and it should have been using the %1 under the funding source group. So it should have been using this funding source. So now that has been corrected. So it will use these fields when it pulls in, went the wrong way, when it in the Excel. Okay. So not too much today on the payroll side. Is there any questions on any of our bug fixes or improvements? Okay, great. Thank you. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to hand it over to Michelle now.
Thanks, Andrea.
Welcome. Gotta stop sharing here. Gotta figure out how to do that. Oh, stop sharing. Right there. There we go. You're all set now.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. What we're going to do is cover the employee self-service releases that took place in October. We had 3 regular and 9 hot fixes. So the good news is I'm not going to cover all the bug fixes. Some of these were internal, like I think all the timesheet ones that are listed down there, and some came about from a prior release. And those were fixed in a hot minute on a hot fix. So what we're going to do is cover the issues, the bug fixes that were reported to us in a service desk ticket. And then I'll go through the improvements and the new features. So I'm just going to scroll down, and we did what we did last month is we kind of categorized these because there's so many going on with ESS right now. We kind of categorized the bug fixes, like subcategorized them. And we did the same thing with the improvements and the new features. Also, at the end of each of these, I just left the JIRA issue number on here in case you did want to go into JIRA and look at some of this information in more detail. So for now, I'm leaving those on until things slow down with ESS and we won't have as many things to cover. Let's get started. The first one you see here is in regards to absence management. And with the first one here, we had an issue with a custom absence that came in from ASAP where the percent of day absence field wasn't calculating as expected for those custom leaves in ASAP that were less than 0.25 a day. So here's an example where the ASAP leave request was 0.18, but it was getting pulled into ESS as 0.25. And so we had to fix that in order to get things to work correctly with ESS. And what we did, and that's been fixed. But what we did as well is that we have explained those calculations underneath the ASAP integration chapter in the manual. So underneath the more information area, there's a section called absence management, custom absence calculations. So you guys can look at that later, but it just explains those calculations and how those work. When that absence for less than 0.25, those custom absences get pulled in. Obviously, anything 0.25, 0.51, those weren't affected. It was just these custom ones that basically there was no restriction on them. And they could, create those absences in ASAP for less than 0.25 days. So that was fixed. I'm going to skip this next one. That's kind of internal. This last one, the employee sync view, handling a no user found exception. Yeah, so underneath the synced absence management grid, there's an employee tab. And when you try to click on one of those, you received a stack trace error. And so it was due to no USPS user being found, but it was found in ASAP. And so it shouldn't just dump a stack trace like that. So we fixed that to handle that error better so that the error is found on that employee on that employee tab grid to explain why the user wasn't found. So that was fixed. So those were the kind of the absence management bugs. We had quite a few corrections for leave related, whether it was a leave request, leave calendar, under the sub coordinator grid. So just to go through some of these here. This first one, under the sub coordinator grid, we corrected the leave request when some sub data was added. What was happening is that under the sub coordinator grid, if you tried to edit one of those leave requests and uncheck the sub requested, it wouldn't let you. So we fixed that. Also, you couldn't add sub data in there. So that was fixed as well. So that was resolved. Under the leave management, the export leave request, it should just be export leave requests. We improved the user interface to prevent duplicate submissions. So we were getting reports that leave was posted or trying to be posted twice into USPS, but USPS was preventing that, obviously. And so what we found is that when people clicked on the export leave, it's spinning and it's working, but it hasn't completed behind the scenes yet. And they click on it again. And so that was causing an issue. So we improved that or corrected that so that it doesn't allow them to click on the export option again until that original submission is completed. So since then, we haven't really had any issues with that. So we believe that took care of that problem. Under the leave request details, make sure I'm not skipping anything here. Yeah, this was more of an internal one here, but under the corrected issue where leave expense area was displayed for leave requests other than professional leave, yeah, when you're going in and viewing a leave request, the leave expense area was being displayed for like sick leave and vacation leave and other leaves other than professional leave. So we corrected that issue. Under the My Leave Request view, it was allowing edits to take place on the leave request after the leave was already approved. So we corrected that to prevent that from happening. We corrected an issue where the leave request line items were not flowing into timesheets. So the timesheet was created, it was a leave request already generated and approved for the employee for that timesheet period. It wasn't flowing into the timesheet. It wasn't showing. So we corrected that. We handled a rounding issue on the leave expense form for the mileage calculations. So on that printed form, the estimated mileage wasn't rounding correctly, and so we fixed that. With the leave request subcategories, we had a couple issues here. Here are the issue numbers. The subcategory was not being saved on the leave request. That was reported and we corrected that. And the subcategory was not validating for those leave types that required a subcategory. So we fixed that as well. We corrected an issue with the employee name. It was missing on the leave request analysis report. So that's been resolved. Concurrent one was a kind of an internal error, kind of unique thing. So we'll skip that. This last one here, we corrected an issue where the leave calendar entries displayed the full leave length for each daily detail. So what was happening here, if I entered a multi-day leave request, let's say for 5 days from the 1st to the 5th, it was displaying 5 on each day on the calendar. Like, so it looked like on the first I had 5 days, on the second I had 5 days. So it looked like I took 25 days of vacation. And so we corrected that. So it just reports 1 day on each day for a total of 5 days. So that was fixed as well. On the sub coordinator, I'm going to move something over here in case anyone has any chat questions. On the sub coordinator, the only one I really want to talk about is the second one. The other one were kind of internal issues. We corrected the sub coordinator grid. They weren't able to edit approved requests in order to add the sub data. So we fixed that. So that was resolved. Under timesheets, these were all more internal bugs that you guys really didn't see. So we're going to skip those. And on the miscellaneous here, we did correct an issue with the employee profile data changes. What was happening is that if on the employee profile configuration, if there were certain areas that were unchecked, so those weren't areas, those fields weren't showing on the employee profile record, if they did a data change request, a user did an employee data change request, those fields that weren't on the employee record, when that was posted to USPS, it cleared the data on those fields. And so in USPS. And so this was a very small window that this happened. We had removed the ability to do data change requests for a while due to another error. And we fixed that and resolved that on version 11. Well, then this surfaced then after that. And it was corrected on 11.3, which was about 4 days later. We had a lot of hot fixes in between there, which part of those 4 days was a weekend. So we're talking just a really small window of time that this could have happened. And so in the release notes for 11.3, we had, advised that they review any of those data changes that took place in those 4 days to make sure that their USPS data for the employee record is showing correctly. So they could run, and we advised to run an audit report on that employee in USPS just to make sure everything looks good and there wasn't anything missing that should have been there. And also we advised that any outstanding data change requests created prior to the 11.3 should be rejected and resubmitted. So that all was explained in the 11.3. So like I said, during that time, part of that was a weekend, probably not a whole lot of activity going on, but that was one thing just to make sure that nothing was cleared out of USPS that, shouldn't have been on the employee record. Let's see, the duo was kind of an internal thing. Handling an error about the workflow was a unique situation with a certain district, so we're going to skip over those. This one here, you may have seen this. I know we got a few tickets on this, where you're attempting to view an ASAP created leave request in ESS, and it kept popping up with a no applicable group chain dialog box. It was annoying. And so the leaves weren't approved in ESS. They were done in ASAP. So we fixed that so that you don't get that error anymore. So that was fixed as well. So those were kind of in a nutshell, the bug fixes that I felt were important to tell you guys about that took place in October. What I'm going to do now is kind of go into the application and show you some of these improvements. So the first one is again, we're talking about absence management. So under the system configuration absence management configuration, if there are changes that were going to be made to that, we added a refresh page notification message like we do with some of our other configurations where you have to click on it to actually update the changes that were made to that configuration menu. So that was added. And also, the bigger one here is we allowed the absence management jobs to be disabled in the configuration, allowing a district to determine if they want to enable or disable part of the integration. So I want to show you that. I'm going to go in and I'm going to go down to the configuration here. Scroll down. Hopefully this is big enough. You guys can see this. And I'm going to the absence management district configuration here, and I'm just doing a view. And so basically, they changed this, they updated this. So you have kind of like three areas here. Enable absence management altogether, or disable it. Enable the leave balance sync, which is pushing leave balances to ASOP. And then this third one is the absence sync, which is pulling leave absence data into ESS. Okay. So this is the one that you guys were, probably most concerned about when you first integrated is that, you entered in all the template ID information and all of that in here. And so what this allows a district to do, for example, if they don't want to pull information in, leave absences from ASOP into ESS, but they want to push leave balances to ASOP, they could check mark this top one to integrate and then check mark this second one to push data, but leave this one unchecked. And so what that's going to do then is not pull the leave absence data into ESS, but it will push leave balance information to ESS. So this is all explained, in the ASOP integration chapter goes into these in more detail, but I just wanted to show you that, this window has changed. Let's see, I'll go back. So I'm going to skip the second one. That was kind of an internal improvement. Running the absence management sync in a 15-minute interval. So yes, we improved that. It was 1 hour and we received a lot of requests from people that, kiosk did it, every 15 minutes. So can we do the same thing? And yes, we've improved that so that sync now runs every 15 minutes and pulls in the absence data from ASOP into ESS. Leave related information that took improvements. We made the font smaller on the calendar. So when you're viewing the calendars, the font's a little bit smaller. It just made it easier to read the entire information on that. We improved a couple of issues on the sub-coordinator grid. So I'm going to go in there. Was out of here. And so in here, one thing that was improved is that it wouldn't allow elevated users, which are your district manager, admin, leave manager, wouldn't allow them to uncheck the substitute scheduled box on the leave request. So, that was by design meant to be that way, but we got a lot of tickets about it saying, hey, they need to uncheck that. So we improved it so that they can now uncheck that substitute scheduled box if they need to. And we also updated the grid so that it no longer removes the leave request after you assign the sub. A lot of people that, wanted that enhanced to say, hey, even though I approved it, I still want it to be on here. So, and that's fine. So what they can do then is if they want to filter, they need to use the filter row. in order to go in and filter. And I would use, the approval status or the substitute schedule to filter out the ones that you no longer want to see. But that was a big request. We thought once the sub was scheduled, it should be removed. But a lot of people said, no, we want to keep it on there. Even though you scheduled a sub, we still want it to show. And then, by having this detailed grid, you can now filter to see what you want to see. Going back here. So under the supervised leave grid, we moved the category property. So when you're viewing, I'm not going to show you this one, but when you're under the view supervised leave, they were getting almost like an error message when trying to sort by category. And so we fixed that so that that works properly. Under, let's see, the mass approve, reject leave requests, that was a new one that we added. So again, if I go back here and I'm just going to go to the home screen. And I know, on this one, I don't have anything listed here. I'm not logged in as a supervisor, but if I was, it would show all the leave requests or all the leave requests awaiting for me to approve. And in here, I can select the ones that I want and click on mass approve or mass reject. So before it was just on the leave request approval screen, and now we added it to the home screen too for the supervisors, for the approvers. Let's see, go back. The additional leave request details were added to the leave calendar entry window. Let me go into that. So when viewing, and this is a nice one, what was happening, I'll go in there to the leave calendars. And so when you clicked on one of these, it used to show up just a little pop-up box, just summarizing a few of the fields on the leave request. Well, we had a lot of complaints like, I want to see this and that. So what we did is we changed that so they can see everything. So basically they're seeing the entire leave request. And they're seeing the leave request details, the daily details, the leave request approval trail. So basically it's basically viewing a leave request, but you're viewing it from the calendar. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. Also, while I'm in the leave calendars here, one other thing that was changed is for multi-day leave requests. It was making it hard to determine exactly what days were actually taken. So for example, if I went in and created one leave request for, let's say, I'll pick on the 14th through the 19th. So it was Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. So I had 4 days on there. What it used to show is it used to show one long, and this is, I think, this is approved. It showed the whole approved request, and it was colored all the way from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So it included the weekend. And all it said was, the name of the person, their type of leave, and 4 days. I don't know when the 4 days fell. It really didn't tell me exactly. Could they have worked the weekend? I don't know. So what we did is we changed that. We improved that so that it's showing, first off, the actual days that the leave was taken on. So it's going to break it off and break it down. Even though the request is still one leave request on the calendar, it's going to show 1 day for Thursday, 1 day for Friday, 1 day for Monday, and 1 day for Tuesday. And then obviously the weekends, there won't be anything listed on there. So it just makes it makes it easier. When they click on the leave request, obviously it's going to show, the 4 days on that one leave request, but at least the calendar, it makes a little more sense as to how it's being viewed on there. So those are the leave related improvements. Under timesheets, we did make some improvements in there. So I'm going to have to log in as somebody, my timesheet here. So I'm going to sign out of my admin account. I'm going to log in as Susan and go to my timesheets. And so the first thing we did is allow the submission and recalling of the timesheet from the grid. So we added a couple icons on the grid here. So we've got the ability to submit for approval. Before, you had to click on it to open up the timesheet, and then there was an approval box down at the bottom. Well, we made it more convenient that they can submit from the grid now. And also, if they need to recall a submitted timesheet, and this is only available for submitted, not approved, submitted timesheets. So from the grid, they can recall that timesheet in case they need to go in and make more changes to it. So those were new. Also underneath here, we added a notification too that when you do recall a timesheet, it's going to display a little green box up at the top, just a notification box saying, yes, you are recalling the timesheet. So we added that. And also, one other thing that came in is that if a user initiated a timesheet, whether the timesheet was created manually or whether the timesheet was automatically created, the issue was when they were manually created, they could delete them. But for those auto-generated timesheets, they couldn't. And so the timesheet wasn't submitted. It wasn't approved yet. It's still at the initiated status. Why can't I delete it? And so we removed that restriction from those automated timesheets that are at an initiated status. They can go in and delete that if they need to. So that was improved. Under the user information, we improved the email notification when using the bulk resetting passwords. So when that user gets an email, it will tell them on the email message that their password was reset and it was an internal action done by an admin user. So if they're like, what happened? Why is my password being reset? It explains that so they understand, oh, okay, this was something district did a mass reset, and then it gives them the option then to go in and change their password to a permanent password. So we improved that. We made the group and group change names case insensitive. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to log out of this and go back to my admin account. My session is a little slow today. Sorry about that. Okay, and if I go down to users and I go down to group chains, and so when a group chain is created, so if I went in and clicked on create, and regardless of how I entered the name of the group chain, whether I used uppercase, lowercase, combo, once that group chain is saved, it's always going to force it to be all lowercase. So I'm going to cancel out of here. And so that's where you're seeing these names. They're all lowercase. That way we didn't run into problems where they had test all caps and test all lowercase. So it will force them to have their group chain names all lowercase. So it automatically fixes that when they save it. Also, on the group chain, another thing, I'm going to go into one of these. I'll pick on the edit. And one other thing that we improved in here are these available and selected grids where they can go in and resize this. And also we provided a little tooltip here because the descriptions could get pretty lengthy. And so if they want to see, what exactly is this group, they just hover over it and it will provide the full details of the description. So those are some improvements that we made in there. So that was the user information. And then under, before I get started here, I missed one. The leave export CSV file, we also improved that for the appointment type. What was happening there is that it was showing certified and classified instead of 1 or 2. And so we fixed that. So it reports 1 or 2 in that CSV file. And under the miscellaneous information here, this first one, the compensation pay rate will now display the unit amount. So that was improved. We improved yeah, this one's more of an internal change that we did, so I'm really not going to go over that one. But the last two I will cover. We improved the grid under, sorry, the district leave request grids to show the first name and the last name separately. I was so happy to see this one. So if I would go underneath leave requests, and the district leave request, it separates these now. So you can filter better on the user. So that was a nice enhancement. And then the last one on this one is under the system configuration. There's a new option under there, kind of an improvement, I guess, instead of a new feature, if you will. That's called data change email configuration. And so I'll show you where that's at. But what that will do is send an email to the data change manager when a data change request is submitted by an employee. So I'll show you where that's at. So I'm going to go down to system configuration. And it's this one right here, this third one. This is a new option that was added. So it's very similar to the leave request email configuration. They can go in and make any changes if they want to, make sure that it's enabled. And like I said, once an employee submits a data change request, the data change manager will get notified via email. So that's nice. Okay, I think I covered all of the improvements. So now we'll tackle the new features, and we won't go into the patches. We'll just tackle the new features and hopefully get you guys out of here in about 15 minutes. All right, so new features under absence management. We added a couple of new things. For one, we added a new sync job to the batch job, and it's called an employee data sync, where it nightly syncs employee data from ASAP with the employees / USPS people in ESS. And so let me show you where that's at. So I'm going to go into the batch job here. And if I just start typing in employee, you'll see the sync employee job information. So and then you can view that information if you need to, but that's the new batch job that was set up. And then we added a new employee grid to the synced absence management. So that's part of this issue as well. And it's this one right here. And I'm going to be honest, it's ugly right now. We do have an outstanding issue, and it's ESS 1000. Easy one to remember, where they're going to improve this grid. I have a whole lot documented on this one yet, because there are still some things that need to be fixed or improved on here. And so, and I think that ESS 1000 is scheduled for the 2024.17 release. Our next release is 16, so it's going to be happening soon, that this gets fixed. And once it does and it gets improved, we'll add more documentation to it. But basically, this is just wanting to search for, if the ASAP employee comes over, is there a USPS / ESS employee? So it's going to try and search by the employee ID number. It's doing a lot of other things right now that isn't necessary. So, and it's showing a lot of duplicate stuff in here on the grid right now. So once that's cleaned up, it'll look a little bit better, and we'll be able to document that. A little side note on this, with these grids in the sync data view, I know we've had tickets come in. My absence didn't come over. Meaning I can't see it. So I posted an absence in ASAP, and when we try to look at the absence underneath leave request, it's not there. Why? That's one that we've had. Another one is the absence came over, but it came over under the wrong position. Why? What we've done is we've created a troubleshooting chapter underneath the appendix. And I don't, hopefully, we won't have to add too many of these, but it just helps troubleshoot some of these frequent questions that we're getting. Now, we get some kind of dandy ones that are very unique that, probably won't be listed in here, but these two have been pretty prominent in the support desk. And so what we've done is we've walked you through how to troubleshoot these, and just kind of goes in and explains, it pulled into the wrong position. So the lead came over, it's just on a different position. How do I fix this? And so it takes you through all of that and how to resolve the issue. And same thing, I created an absence in ASAP, but it's missing in ESS. Why? And so it goes in and really you're honing in on these synced views. And this is going to help you to figure out why. And so it's, basically kind of indicating underneath this matched column, if it isn't matched, there's a problem. And so, like I said, between the data import view, and this is the leave data that's coming in from ASAP. This is one place to see that information. And then the synced information on the absence reason, which is the leave type category. Maybe a school issue where the school's in ASAP, but maybe the IRN is not in USPS and it's not causing the schools to be mismatched. Or like I said, the employee is in ASAP, but not in USPS. That could be an issue. And so those are, that's where it's doing the syncing and making sure that these three areas are syncing properly. This absence reason one has been a big one where they created usually a subcategory in ASAP that they didn't create in ESS. So the leave's trying to come over the absence, but it can't because that subcategory is not in ESS. So this will help, define, there's a vacation subcategory where there's an X here. So it's active in ASAP, meaning it's in ASAP, but it's not in ESS. So to resolve that one, this is an easy one. I would have to go into ESS, into the subcategories, and create that subcategory in ESS, and that will resolve the issue. So, this troubleshooting explains those steps. So hopefully that will help in case you guys run into any issues with that. Okay. So like I said, that employee grid underneath the synced view, we're working on that, and ESS 1000 will help improve that even more. So we do have other improvements regarding the sync data. That's going to be on 2024 16 as well, which is coming up, I think, tomorrow or today. And those will get updated when we get a chance and get those updated in the documentation as well. Under the leave related new features, under the leave management, leave expenses report, we did provide a new download button to download the expense form. So I can show you where that's at here. So if I go under leave management, here it is, and leave expense report. This is where you're going to see this download option where you can print the leave expense. And you notice it's all much professional leave here. Also, if you view it, there's a print leave expense form option down here as well. So you can get to it, print it off in either spot. Canceling fully approved leave. This has been a huge request, and that has been released that it will email the originator and the approvers when a leave has been canceled. So they're both notified, including the leave balance on the approver grid. This is a nice feature as well. So I'm going to go back out of here and I'm going to log in as an approver. And what I'm talking about is over here, there's a leave balance area now, and that was added to the grid. So what happens then is it displays the user's current leave balance for that leave type, subtracting any approved leave. So looking at Stacy here, she has, 2.5 sick days here. So as I approve these, it's going to update this leave balance to show, what is left basically. So if I have like 162.75, go in and approve the first one, approve the second one, then approve the third one, you'll see that leave balance being updated. So that's nice for the approver to be able to see that running balance as to what's going on. And the other thing I wanted to show you is the blackout dates on the calendar. You may have seen those when we were in calendars earlier. So if I go in here and click, the blackout dates are going to show in here. Here is Veterans Day, so it's going to be kind of a black. I know we have a soft black as well on the leave calendars. Here's an example of the soft black. So you can, depending, on your screen, you can see a difference. And those are exported leaves, the soft black. All of that's documented, the leave colors and stuff in the calendar, district calendar or leave calendar documentation. Okay, almost done here. Two other things, timesheets and users. So new features that were added to timesheets is adding a filter flag to the timesheet export grid to see timesheets with only exceptions or overtime. So if I go into timesheets here and I think I might have to log out, yes, and go back to my admin. The privileges to see all of that. So I'm going to go down to timesheets here and the timesheet export, and it's right here. Only show timesheets with exceptions and overtime hours. So this is the new filter. And so that will then filter this to only show those down here. And the other thing that we did is the timesheet holiday escalated flag. This is nice too. When attempting to submit a timesheet, and if that timesheet holiday has the notify holiday manager checked, so let me show you where that's at. We go down to timesheet manager and the timesheet holidays, and I'm just going to view this one. So if this is checked, then what's going to happen then is it will send an email to the timesheet manager to let them know about the holiday. So so that's another new feature that we added. The last thing I want to talk about is the updates, or I should say new features that were added to the group chain. And I'm saving the best for last because I know everyone has asked for this. I have asked for this. So let me show you that. So I'm going to go into the group chain. And what we've done is we have added a matched employee icon here, or matched positions icon here that will include the matched employees for that workflow. So that is so neat. So in here, and I know that's been heavily requested. So in here, I can go in and click, and it's going to show me all the employees and their positions that fall underneath that workflow. So love that option. So that's something that, just really added here on one of the last releases. And so it's a huge gain when it comes to who is under what on the group chains. All right. Oh, got a message here. Can you clarify more on the canceled leave request, please? I have submitted a test leave and have received the email that it was initiated as well as approved. I have not received an email that the leave was canceled, but my approver did. With this update, I am assuming that I should have also received the email. Is that accurate? So the originator and the approvers should have received an email notification on that, Erica. So you aren't in there as like notify, like view only notify, right? You were the one that did the actual uh, cancellation of your leave. Okay. Uh, we'll test that out, and if you would create a ticket, we can look into that further. But that should be working, unless I'm missing something. So, yeah, so create a ticket and we'll look into that further. Okay, let me go back. Thank you. And so, yeah, that's in a nutshell what took place this last month. So hopefully this helps seeing this format and being able then to see any of these JIRA issues if you need to. But yeah, all of this is labeled in here, and all of the release notes are also listed in here, linked just like they are for all the other ones. So I guess the only other thing I wanted to talk about is just kind of moving on to what's scheduled next. We do have the November release recap that's going to be coming up in December, but we don't really have any other Fridays with Fiscal in November. This is the last one for the month. And then December, we'll tackle November recap that first Friday. And then the second Friday, we're going to talk about accounts receivable module, just do a review of that. And also on the 20th, reviewing USPS mass change definitions that are related to year end. So that's kind of what we have scheduled here for the rest of the year. I did yesterday we had a steering committee meeting, and I did let the members know that we're planning our Fridays with Fiscal sessions for the new year. We kind of have a shell of a schedule we've been working on, and so we're going to be adding more information in there, but hopefully that schedule will be out here close to the end of December so that you guys can see the 2025 schedule. Okay, are there any questions in regards to the ESS updates recap? Okay, if not, I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with your family and friends, and we will see you guys in December. Thank you.